Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. It is so much fun to be creating the adventure of my lifetime. I get to talk to some of the most remarkable people on the entire planet, and one of them is with us today. I'm not going to say what I always say, which is, we got a great show for you today. We do, but I always say that, and I probably shouldn't. But Kirsten, right? Kirsten. Dang it, I knew it. But Kirsten is a fellow podcaster.
True story.
And we were talking about that before the show began. And she's one of those special people that kind of grew up wondering, is this all there is? And what is really out there? And a lot of us have to get a little older and have a lot of experiences before we figure out that what we've been told it is really isn't what it really is. And so she's been working at this for a long time. She is a graduate from a school of theology. She lives all over the planet. She's in the Gulf Coast today. She's going to be in Oregon. She's having the time of her life. And I want to thank her for being here. How are you, young lady?
I'm so good. I was going to say, I love that you start every show with, this is going to be a great show, but you can totally say TBD with me, to be determined. And at the end, maybe we can agree. Yes, it's a great show, or maybe not so great. So I'll try to live up to your expectations.
Well, like I tell people that podcasts are like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. But I know what we're going to get today, and we're going to get a fabulous discussion. And we're going to talk about all the things that you and I really, your podcast, which is called
Bite-Sized Blessings, and it's BYTE.
Which is a wonderful play on the word bite. So it's digital rather than bite as in BITE. But it's great. How'd you come up with the name?
Oh gosh, names are hard.
Oh,
They're
no
so
kidding.
hard. I mean, I always used to make fun of people who were in bands and they would be struggling. How do we come up with the band name? And I thought, what? Oh, not a big deal. I mean, that's easy, right? But then when I needed to come up with a name for this show, I struggled and I thought, what am I trying to say? What is this going to look like? What am I even doing? And then one day I was reading a book and it suddenly just came to me, Bite-Sized Blessings. And I thought, but I'm going to do BYTE because I want each episode to be reminiscent of a unit of information. Because I grew up, I love science magazines. I love science. And then, of course, I have my Masters of Divinity. So that name kind of really beautifully dovetails with my two interests, spirituality and science.
What got you involved with the School of Theology?
Yeah, the Iliff School of Theology in Denver. That is a great question, my kind sir. I have always, and I don't know if this is a product of growing up overseas, but I've been enthralled and enchanted with stories of myth, of fable, folk tales, fairy tales from all over the world, because I find it utterly captivating how humans create meaning. I find it so interesting because each of us every day, whether we know it or not, are walking through the world trying to make sense of our worlds, trying to create meaning and stories that resonate with us. And so I've always been interested in the folktales, myths that humans have created for thousands of years. And, I have read extensively folktales from all over the world. And I really wanted to get a Masters of Divinity because it's another way. It's a very liberal school. Okay. So I took some really interesting classes, Intro to Islam, which was very appropriate since I grew up in an Islamic country. I took Buddhism. I took many Christian courses. I myself am a panentheist, so I don't really have a religion. And so I just felt compelled to go and discover another layer around how humans create meaning, but in the so-called quote unquote religious sphere, like dedicated religions, Islam, Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism. I wanted something that was more rigorous versus me just reading whatever book, fairy tale book I could get my hand on. I don't know why I went, to be honest. My mother said to me, "My God, how are you going to pay for it?" And I thought, you know what? I have a feeling that the universe is going to take care of me on this. And it did. I mean, when I graduated, I sold my home in Portland because I'd moved to Santa Fe, and I used that to pay off my graduate school loans. So you could say that I went to school because I wanted to just unpeel another layer of the onion of how humans create meaning. But if I had my druthers, I would have 20 master's degrees by now because I'm endlessly curious and I want to just learn the rest of my life. That would make me totally happy. So it was also slightly hedonistic going to school and get my master's degree.
Now, you just said a word a few minutes ago that bears repeating, and we're going to talk about that. But before we go there, I find it fascinating that, like, in the olden days, like thousands of years ago, people looked up and they said, "There's a great big yellow ball above there. Where did that come from, and why is it there? And is it a god? Is it what is it?" And then they assign a story, which is now a fable, and a meaning for it all. And it's been done that way throughout history, and we still do it to some extent today, I think.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that I love the most because I'm a science aficionado is I love the stories of the constellations and how those have changed over the millennia. You know, 5,000 years ago, they saw different constellations, and the stories were different than the constellations we see today. Even, you know, continent wise, in different lands, they had different stories based on the stars. So we really have a proclivity to find patterns in life, in things, and the stars are no exception. So that's a touchstone for me is how do humans see patterns? How do we create meaning? And I love stories. You have to know I'm a storyteller, I'm an author, I'm a screenwriter. And so all of that is fodder for my writing, understanding why do humans behave this way? Why do they react this way? Why do they create this way? So yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of how humans tell stories.
It's remarkable that if you're, as an example, from Ireland, you have leprechauns, and if you're from someplace else, they've got other things, and we all assign meaning to them. But it all comes down to this. I really think is the same thing. And you called it something, and I can't pronounce it. I'm pretty sure, but let me get. I'm going to give it a shot. Okay, you ready?
Go for it.
Panthen, what did you call it?
Panentheism.
Panentheism.
Yes.
And what is that?
Well, it basically means that God is in all things. And so, I mean, basically everything's conscious for me. Everything has legitimacy, you know, from that microphone to the space needle over your shoulder to that gorgeous mountain over your other shoulder. Everything in our world, everything that I interact with or that I see, that I notice that's in my purview is sacred and conscious, and God is in all of it, or goddess, or that energy, whatever kind of word you want to use as far as that's concerned.
So I had never heard that term before. Where did that come from? Do you know?
Great question. It is, you know, God, Pan means God. Pan means all. I'm sorry, excuse me. And then theism means God or spirit. And so if you put the words together, it's pan and theism, God in all. And it's been around for, I mean, that sentiment has been around forever. They just use different words for it, different descriptors, different ways of describing it. But it's just the sense that everything is alive and that it's conscious and that we're walking through it and co-creating with it. So I mean, I think probably the idea of panentheism has been lost, you know, the concept of who created it has been lost to the mists of time. I wouldn't be surprised if it's been around for tens of thousands of years. But yeah.
Well, you know what's interesting about that and your philosophy. I grew up Lutheran and in a very conservative Lutheran sect, which was the Missouri Synod, and things like meditation were not something we talked about, or other aspects of spirituality. And one of the things that I was reading Neil Donald Walsh. You know who he is?
Yes.
And I was reading Conversations with God, book one, and I was just reading along, and one of the passages, God said, "We are all one." And I stopped and I thought about that. It's like, holy crap, I've never heard that before. And if we are all one, then we have no reason to hate each other because we're hating ourselves then. Or if we don't believe in each other's divinity and each other's who we really are, if then we're not serving ourselves. And so it's like if we believe that, if everybody believed and understood that, boy, wouldn't this world be a different place?
Oh my goodness. Yes, of course it would. I mean, what's really fascinating about what you just said is that I absolutely believe that everything is one. And this idea that we're separate, or that the world is separate from us, or the wind is separate from us, or the water, is this illusion that we use so that we can understand the world that we live in. I think the world potentially could get a little confusing and messy if we understood that we're all one. But what I really found beautiful and provocative about what you just said is, well, then it kind of takes away the idea that we should hate each other based on how different they are, their otherness. And we do enough to ourselves that I think we hate ourselves enough. It's really hard to be in this world and be awake and conscious and alive in it and love ourselves, because everything in the world is designed, or not everything, but a lot of things in the world are designed to help us feel like we are less than, that we don't amount to anything, that we need that shoe, that we need that car, that we need that house, so that we have legitimacy, so that we're worth it, so we're worthy. And doing that work to kind of self-love, and like truly self-love, is hard work. It's terrifying. It takes a lot of energy. And it's so self-love, trying to combat that self-hate, is, I think, the first place everyone should start. Because I think when you truly love yourself and truly kind of adore the person that you are, it's way harder to go out in the world and then just arbitrarily find a group that you hate. And I think I always say this. I'm like, look, at my heart, I'm lazy. If I could lay in bed all day, I would. I'd lay in that bed and I wouldn't do anything, and I would just maybe eat bonbons and watch a show. So I think hating people and ostracizing people and othering people takes a lot of work. And it's way easier to just love people and accept them and meet them where they're at, to say, hey, you're included. Hey, you belong. Hey, come to the barbecue. Hey, meet my friend over here. Whereas, actively mounting a response to other people, or, hurt them or malign them, man, that takes so much effort. And I err on the side of just being lazy, I guess you could say.
Well, I know I agree with you because there are people who are running around our planet that actually think along the lines of, now, if I do this to them, and then I can put this in there, and then I can do this to the, it becomes like a chess game for them. Apparently, I don't know, but it seems like way too much work for me to figure out how to hate somebody else, or to come up with a reason, and then to act on that, or to lie to people. That's one of my favorites, is when you lie to somebody, you have to remember what it is that you lied about the next time you see them.
That's it. I know it's exhausting. Well, I do think that, yeah, lying is never a good thing. But I do think that it's important to understand that a lot of people approach this world, or orient themselves in this world, through a kind of this place of lack or scarcity or fear. And, even they could say, I'm the most faithful person to my God on the planet. But if you are faithful, quote unquote, or practicing some sort of religious rite, but you are ostracizing people because they're not good enough, or they don't worship the way, you're like innately afraid of something. There's something that you are afraid of. And I think it's the people with the greatest faith in this world, in this planet, in themselves, in other people. Those are the people that invite other people to join and create community and belonging, and are the people that we want to follow, because those people will never leave anyone out.
And even in that world, because I've traveled in that world a little bit, there are there are people who are using that for their own nefarious purposes. So one has to be very careful before one starts following a guru, as it
Oh,
were.
oh gosh. So I will never be a guru. I will never follow a guru. I'm really nervous about people that self-style themselves as gurus, because they're not. I mean, the people, I've had multiple conversations about this on my podcast. People who go away for 2 days, 3 days, a week, and they come back and they tell people they're a shaman and that they can heal people and that they do things that are inexplicable, or they're an authority on something. Those people scare me to death, because inside them there is this really disturbing aspect where they believe they should be in a position of leadership and people should follow them. Everyone that I have known who is a true, I don't know, I hate to use that word guru or leader, but anyone who is in a position of power in that way, they wear it so lightly, almost like that power is an afterthought. And by the way, they've gone through probably one of the worst nights, dark nights of the soul that you've ever heard of, something that was so painful and terrible, so that they could get to this place where they could maybe minister to others or be of service to others or lift other people up. They also have the most insane level of humility. And yeah, so I cannot, I actively avoid those people who self-style as gurus and leaders, because if they haven't spent years training, years and years of training, and they wear their authority as kind of really lightly, almost like they don't have it, those are the people that I want to follow. Those are the people I believe in, because humility is first and foremost at the front. And most of these people, I don't know who you're talking about, but humility is the last thing on their minds.
I grew up in the restaurant business. And when I was going through my spiritual journey and was doing the radio show, I met some people who really claimed to be enlightened, guru-ish, special star children, or whatever label they wanted to put on themselves. And so there was one guy, we got along really well, and so we went out to breakfast one time. And me being a former restaurant person, I am very careful about how I treat the waiter and the bus people and the stuff, because they're doing the best that they can. Well, he was rude to the waitress, and it's like, no, 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 no. If you are truly a student of humanity, then you're not rude to anybody. And so he all right, get to cross that one off my list, because and what I've learned is people are people.
Yeah.
And some of us are granted a great experience in life. I consider you one of those. I consider me one of those, that we get to do some extraordinary things and talk to some amazing people, and in the podcast that both of us do. And it isn't a matter of look at me because I'm doing this. It's a matter of, what can I bring? How can I help? How can I help people heal? Help people realize that they can live a better life, but it's all within them. It has nothing to do with me. How do you feel about that?
Oh my gosh. Well, when I was living in Santa Fe for about 8 years, I got to be known as a connector of humans, or a bringer together of humans, because nothing makes me happier than to just know a lot of different people. And if someone needs help in one area or another area, or over here, I invariably knew someone that I could introduce them to so that they could maybe get that project a little bit further down the road. Or if someone needed someone to give a sermon at a church, I could introduce them. So I'm all about connecting people. And it's one of my little contributions about lifting other people up in this world, because I'm sure you'd agree that we're all supposed to be of service to each other. We're all supposed to be lifting, each of us has a job to do on this planet. It looks different for each of us. Mine happens to be connection and collaboration. That's one of the things that I'm here for. And so I'm all about collaboration, lifting up as many people as possible and doing it lightly so that, nobody even knows I've been there, sort of like the invisible man. I like sneak in, I do a few things, and then I walk away and let everyone else kind of raise the vibration or make magical things happen. And that's exciting. It's exciting to bring people together. It's exciting to see the kind of change they're going to make. And so I totally think that we're all meant to be here to lift other people up in different ways.
Well, when we come back from this break, we're just going to take a 30-second break. And when we come back, I'm going to ask you what makes you the happiest. Is it when somebody does something nice for you, or is it when you do something nice for somebody else? We'll be right back.
They have your eyes. They have your ears. They have your smile. Now all they need is a little more of your time. Make a difference in your child's life, because anyone can be a father. It takes time to be a dad.
And welcome back to Positive Talk. Did I wake you up? Did I wake anybody up? I hope so, because this is a very special show. Kirsten Rudberg is here, right? Rudberg is here. She is a podcaster of note. She is a Master of Divinity. What level of education did you get in your divinity school? Or
just a Masters of Divinity? Yeah, just a master's degree.
Just a master's degree.
Yes.
I barely graduated from high school, so a master's degree is well above my pay grade. So it is my honor to have you here. And by the way, before we get too far, I want to invite you back, because we've got so much to talk about in the course of our shows that we're going to put together. And
agree.
So I wanted to ask you, what makes you happiest? When somebody gives you something, or when you are able to make somebody else happy?
So I'm just going to tell you, most people have terrible taste. So I hate it when people get me things, because invariably it's something that I absolutely do not want and don't like. And so I'm not a fan of people getting me things just because I usually don't need them and they annoy me. So that's just a dark shadow side of me that you're seeing right there. That being said, I mean, I can say unequivocally, even if I got the most incredible gift that I've wanted my entire life, unequivocally helping other people. I mean, being able to facilitate something or giving something to someone that makes them so happy makes me happy. I had a really dear friend in Portland that got diagnosed with an extremely rare autoimmune disease. And we had worked together in a restaurant forever, and I adored him to pieces. And he had to be on this really specialized diet. And it was a very, very expensive diet. And he had to buy organic meats and all this stuff. And he said, there's only sales during certain times. And we don't have the freezer space for everything that we could buy. And, it's just going to cost so much for me to be on this diet. I mean, he had such a terrible autoimmune disease. It was terrible. And so one day I just went out and found a freezer on sale, and I had it delivered to his house, because it was something that I could do, a small act that I could do that helped him immeasurably. But that's the kind of stuff that makes me happy, helping dear friends or being of service, helping other people. Yeah, any day of the week. That's better.
Now, I need you to tell me if I need to be on medication, because you grew up in the Western restaurant business, or you worked in the restaurant business, right?
Yes.
When I was working, be it a host or a busboy, even a graveyard dishwasher, I did that for a period, or I was a waiter, and I had a particularly good shift, not in the money that I made, but in the people that I was able to serve. And I was able to get them, make sure that they were taken care of and made them laugh and stuff. That filled me up, and that made my life joyful. I never liked any of the jobs I had before I got into the restaurant business, but apparently being of service was a big deal for me. Was it that way for you?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes. Well, first of all, because of my moving everywhere lifestyle and wanting to have adventures and what have you, being in the restaurant business or being a barista at a coffee shop, you can go anywhere in this world and get a job instantaneously. So you can start working. I loved the flexibility of that. So that is part of it. Very flexible, easy to get a job. But secondly, my last job that I had in Portland before I decided to get my Masters of Divinity, and I worked in the corporate world, by the way, and I hated that I took my work home with me. I couldn't stand it. When you're in the restaurant business, you don't do that. You don't take your work home with you. It's left there at the restaurant. So emotionally, mentally, you leave that stuff at the place where you work. But yeah, I mean, my boss at my last job said to me when I said I was going to divinity school, she said, Kirsten, you really do. You're of service here with the customers. You listen to them. You've known them for years. You're of service. Now you're just going to do a different kind of service. So I got my MDiv so that I could learn to be of service in other ways. It's just something that I think I yearn for that in some sick way. Maybe you also yearn for it in a sick way, but yeah, working in a restaurant totally fulfills that for sure.
Well, the interesting story. One time, I was the host at a Denny's, and during lunchtime, and it was a busy day, and I really enjoyed talking to the people and taking their money and seating people and stuff like that. And the guy walks up to the counter, and a waitress is standing next to him. And he walks up to pay, and he says, I got to tell you, this Denny's is different than most Denny's that I've been in. Well, what is it? What is it about this one? And the waitress takes her thumb and she points towards me and goes, it's because of him. Because I was having a good time. And what I learned at that moment, that the energy we bring to a situation is the energy that we can send out to the world, and it changes everything. At least for me.
Yeah, no, for sure. It really, really does. And I think it's also important to just know. I mean, there was one restaurant I worked at in Portland where a pretty famous novelist would come in really early so he could eat alone. And, after the first or second week, I'd memorized his order. And he loved that he could come in, didn't have to order. And I would just put it in and leave him alone and let him do his work or his research or whatever was going on. But I treated everyone the same way. Everyone deserved the same amount of respect, the same amount of friendliness, unless someone was being just kind of nasty or having a bad day or what have you, which was really few and far between. I think it's important to always show up for every kind of person, whether they're famous or infamous or just regular, as your shiny self, because everyone deserves to see, for me at least, the best part of me or have their best experience wherever they are.
What's interesting, and I think it's interesting, is that and I love your opinion on this, the experiences that we gain in our lifetime are experiences that we actually planned before we even got here. Mm-hmm. So we knew what we wanted to accomplish, how we wanted to get there, and then our guides and our angels and the energy around us helps us get to where we want to go, and gives us the experiences that we need to fulfill the contract that we put together before we even got here. And in my case, that is proven to be absolutely true. I'll tell you why in a minute. But what do you think?
100%. I believe you. Yes.
That's and okay, why?
Oh, just because, I mean, so I really truly believe, I mean, this is such a great question because it's such a large question.
Yes, it is.
It's a really, really big and question. And I feel like we could do an entire episode just based on this question.
Well,
But
I'll tell you what, let's do this. I want you to think about that answer, and then I've got to take a quick station break. And when we come back, then we'll have like 15 minutes of uninterrupted time to go delve into it because I think it's
deal,
really, really important. We'll be right
deal.
back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. We've got a great guest. She is a podcaster of note, and the name of her podcast, by the way, you can go to her website, find out all about her podcast, and everything. It's bitesizedblessings.com, and you spell bite with a B-Y-T-E rather than the other way because it's digital and stuff, and it's a nice play on words. And Kirsten is here, and you are just amazing. But I wanted to ask you about energy and how it is in part of everything that we do and who we are. And we can actually raise our energy and our vibration to make positive change with the people that we meet and the situations that we run into in life. Has that been your experience?
Oh, yeah. I mean, before the break, you asked about free will versus fated events. And I think that also ties into what you're just asking now about energy, because I do think, I think we co-create with this universe. We are absolutely, the universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it, energy, wants to have a conversation with us, wants to co-create with us. And for those who are paying attention, usually there are lots of signs where that energy or that universe, it's reaching out to you saying, hey, notice this. Hey, notice this. And once you kind of, in my case, I was super grumpy and didn't want to listen for a long time. I'm a huge whiner, super grumpy whiner, cantankerous complainer. And so I put it off for a long time, but then a series of things happened that were so bizarre and so strange that I had no choice to understand. And I'm going to tell you a story that's actually really interesting. So
Please.
I was having a dream one night, and I'm usually a really good dreamer. And keep in mind that this is quite a long time ago before I believed in any of this stuff. I was having this dream, and in the dream, I felt fully present, that I was awake in the dream, and I was there, and I was floating out in the universe, looking out at how pitch black it was. There were the stars everywhere. It was utterly unbelievable and silent, except for that sound that you can hear in movies where there's this hum, this kind of strange space hum. So I was just floating, looking and marveling at how beautiful it was. And I said, oh my gosh, this is so gorgeous. This is so beautiful. And this figure walked in and said, oh, you think this is real? This is what's real. And it reached down to the bottom of my vision and pulled back the universe like a curtain. And, they talk about noetic experiences. I had a noetic experience, and words don't suffice to even explain what I was shown. And to say that it was just love doesn't encompass it or even explain what I was shown. It was beyond all of that. So much so that I woke up from sleep and that entire feeling was in my room. It was cascading down through the room. And I remember being shocked and upset, but also feeling like what a huge gift. And then I had a period of several years where I was resentful and angry and bitter that I'd been shown that, especially when I was going through challenging situations or depression or what have you. And I thought over and over again, okay, I hate you, universe. I hate you. How dare you show me something like that? How dare you tell me that this exists or this is reality? You know, I used colorful language. I was so bitter. I was so angry and resentful. And I thought to myself, you know what? This life is for the birds. I'd rather be there. Like anyone who picks this reality, I'd rather be there. Otherwise, you're completely insane that you would choose this. I was so beside myself and bitter and angry. And one day I went to an acupuncturist and he'd been trying to treat me for a while and I was resisting him. Finally, I felt good about telling him the story. And I told him the story. When I told him, I kind of want to be there, then here his eyes got big and he said, okay, nope, we're going to work on this. And you are not leaving this planet. This was a huge gift. And we need to figure out how you can find some peace with it. And so I understood, over time that there are certain events like there's this saying, amor fati, to be in love with one's own fate. And so that's what I was really struggling with was how do I love my own fate? Because it definitely felt like I was called to something bigger. And so I think there are these fated events that we can show up in our lives that where something in the universe or this reality hinges on the choices that we make. And in between, we have free will. So I believe in fate and free will. So in between, you can kind of be mischievous and have fun, create mischief. But it all starts with honoring that energy, honoring the fact that maybe you're being called. Maybe those synchronicities that are happening are calling you to something greater. That energy, that consciousness wants to co-create with us, wants us to wake up, wants us to be aware that there is the possibility for conversation, because you don't have to start with anything grand. You can just start with a conversation. Maybe when you wake up in the morning, you say, okay, I'm ready. Show me what you got for me today. I'll try to show up as my best self. Like just putting that out there, that energy saying you're ready and willing and able starts the snowball of other magical and synchronistic things happening in your life.
I totally believe that. And as a matter of fact, I don't believe that. I know it. And there's a distinct difference between a belief and a knowing. And I'll tell you why I know it. Because when I was 41, 42, I was at dinner with my family and we were talking about life after death. And none of it made a lot of sense to me because it was very, very Christian viewpoint, very simple. And so I said, there has to be more. So we ended up going to a friend's house and I started saying, there has to be more. I don't understand what it is, but there's got to be more. And I want to find out what that is. And they looked at each other and said, we were having the same conversation. And so the four of us started going down this spiritual road together. And I got the impression that my guides and the angels on the other side were waiting for me to make that decision so that they could go, all right, he finally gave us permission to act. And now they set everything in motion over the next 20 years. And it led me to having this conversation with you.
I think that's so beautiful. And, one of the things, I have a dear friend who lives at the Oregon coast who I'm going to visit. And she has a really great friend who lives in California who's a channeler. And I did not believe in that at all. I just did not believe in it at all. And I avoided for years going. And then finally, one day I thought, okay, I'm just going to call her and have a meeting or a session, I guess. And she goes into the channel session. And the first thing these things say is, oh my gosh, we have been waiting for you to Get with the program. Finally, you've contacted us. It's it's about time. We've been waiting. And then proceeded to tell me a whole bunch of things that they couldn't otherwise have known. But you have to be willing to maybe use unorthodox based on our society or cultural norms, quote unquote. Unorthodox means to get the ball rolling. So whether it's seeing an astrologer or a channeler or maybe going to see a medium or whatever kind of adventure you want to have to jumpstart that process, I say 2 thumbs up, because it'll all eventually lead you somewhere, open you up to things that you didn't think were possible.
And I'll even take that one step further. When you talk about automatic writing or channeling, I would love for everybody that's in the audience today, and I know that there are lots of you, to take a quiet moment, maybe light a candle, maybe take a few deep breaths. If you're at your computer, that's fine. But I want you to be quiet for a moment, take some deep breaths, and then I want you to ask yourself a question. And then I want you to start writing. I don't want you to think about what you're writing. I don't want you to plan what you're writing. I want you to think of the first word that comes into your mind and then write that down, followed by the second word that comes into your mind. Write that down. Don't concentrate on what you've written or what you're going to write. Concentrate on the word that is coming into your mind at that particular moment. And then after a period of time, what you'll find is you've written something that you have no earthly idea how you did that. Do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think if you can meditate and give space for silence or quiet or reverie, I love that word, reverie. All sorts of things can bubble up and arise that'll change your life. Absolutely, I agree, 100%.
It is remarkable what we are capable of, that many of us don't realize what we're capable of.
Yeah, I think there's this misguided, I hate to say that or use that word, but maybe this mistaken assumption that, being a medium or psychic or using your intuition is only certain people have that skill or attribute or what have you, can access it. And that is not true at all. Everyone is intuitive, just to varying degrees. And probably most of us can display some mediumistic tendencies and or psychic abilities to some extent. Because, I do think most of us have had these really strange occurrences. The most common one I can think of is you think of a dear friend, and that dear friend's been on your heart for maybe a day. You haven't heard from them in so long, and then they call you that night. For me, that is it happens so much, it's almost banal to even mention it. But that is, for me, one example of our interconnectedness, the energy that's all around us, and potentially our ability to sense or intuit that person's going to be in our life so very soon.
It is remarkable. And even music on the radio does this to me all the time. And there was a Leanne Womack wrote a song called I Hope You Dance. And this is back in the early 2000s when I was going through this period of trying to discover who I really was and meditating and learning about spirituality and stuff. And this song, and then we started doing the radio a couple of days a week on a station on KLAY, and I kept hearing the song. I'd turn on the car and the song would start playing, and the premise of the song is, I hope you dance. Don't let your life go by without meaning something. Get up and dance. Get up and do what you're being called to do. And that song, it resonated so deeply with me. And it happens all the friggin' time. I don't know how they do it, but it's amazing to me. And so if you pay attention, you'll get things like that, or the billboard, and here's a great one. Pick a favorite book of yours, a spiritual book, and just have the book be closed and think of something a question you want to ask, and then open the book randomly. And the answer, I swear to you, the answer will be in the pages that you open to. You're nodding your head. I think I maybe don't need medication.
No, you don't need medication at all. I think, there's any number of ways that we can kind of discern answers to our questions, let alone through the automatic writing, which I think is brilliant, or hiring a channeler or using a tarot deck. There are so many different ways that we can use to get answers or to access a knowing at a deeper level that maybe, sometimes those knowings are uncomfortable and make us feel icky, or we'd rather avoid them like the plague. But we have to face these sometimes, sooner or later. If we want to move forward, sometimes we have to look at things that are icky. But yeah, I totally agree with you. There are any number of ways to get the answers that we're looking for, or the help or the advice. Absolutely.
I'd like your advice on this, because you are a very learned person, and you're very smart, and you're my guest, and you're wonderful. And her name is Kirsten Rudberg, and she's got a podcast which is called bitesizedblessings.com. Go there, find out all about her, and listen to her podcast. She's had over 30,000 downloads. She's a podcaster of note, and we're kindred spirits in that way. So I would love for you to go and find out more about her, because there was a time when you said to yourself, how do I make this work? And you decided that it was podcasting. How did that come about?
Oh my gosh. Well, I graduated from seminary when the pandemic started. And I'm sure, as you can imagine, there were no jobs anywhere to be had. I'm a panentheist. I don't belong to a religious tradition. So I already have the challenge of, what church do I go to? How do I get affiliated? How do I work in that sphere? Then, of course, the pandemic happened. And I was sitting at home, and everyone on social media was lonely, isolated, terrified, wondering what was happening in the world. And I just thought to myself, what comforts me? What makes me happy? What do I want to hear about? And one of my very dear friends, many people would always come to me and say, hey, this weird thing happened to me, and I don't know what to think of it. So people were already over the years telling me these strange experiences they had. And I thought to myself, I love those stories. They're so interesting. And I wondered, okay, I wonder if anyone in my cohort at seminary has any stories like this. And so I messaged them as my guinea pig group, shall we say. And all of them said to me, oh my gosh, yes, I've had this magical experience, this miraculous experience, this thing I can't even explain because it's outside of what we consider quote unquote normal. And yes, I will talk about it on the podcast. And so that's really how it began, was me wanting to help people remember that there are a lot of things happening in this world that are mysterious and magical and beautiful. And it, to me, indicates that there is a mysterious force, energy, spirit in this universe that has our backs, wants us to succeed, wants to propel us to where we need to be for whoever we have to show up for, because we're all just kind of cogs in this great, historical moving forward. No one's more special than anyone else. We're all just meant to be of service so that the next generation can go forward to create even more beauty. And so the podcast is really supposed to remind people that this world is a beautiful place. There is magic behind the curtain of our reality, and that it wants to work with us, and will do so sometimes in very surprising and enchanting ways.
Oh, no question about it. You know how I got into radio?
Tell me.
I had a friend. One of the friends that we were going down this path, and we were doing meditation. We were doing a bunch of stuff. He called me one day, and he was very excited. And he said, I just had an epiphany. And I said, oh, really? Did it hurt? He said, no, this is what it was. I think that we need to get a television show to do a television show about all the things that we're learning. And we'll call it Spirit Talk, and we'll have a great time, and we'll have wonderful people and energy workers and stuff. I said, well, that's all well and good, but I don't think we can do TV. I'll check it out. Turned out we couldn't, but I learned that we could do radio. Mm-hmm. And so we started doing a radio show. And the coolest thing about at least my life, and since I'm a little bit older now, I can look back at the relationships that I've had with people and why that they were the way they were and where they went. He got me interested in doing radio. I bought some time. We did a show together. He decided it wasn't for him. I haven't talked to him in 20 years.
Wow.
So he got me to think about doing radio. I fell in love with the medium. Circumstances made it possible for me to do 2 hours a day, 5 days a week on another radio station in Seattle for a year. And it was all predestined because I felt like he and I had a contract that said, okay, this is how it's going to work. All right. We're going to meet and we're going to get together and we're going to have a good time. And then I'm going to make you think about doing this and you're going to do it and follow through. And this is how you're going to get to where you say you want to go. And I think that happens to a lot of us if we pay attention. Now, you mentioned free will. I have the ability to say, no, are you stupid? That's stupid. We're not going to do that. But I didn't. I believed in it. And so, and now because of all of that, I have 1,200 shows up. I get to talk to you. It's an amazing life that I get to lead. And most importantly, I get to meet and get to talk to on the airwaves some extraordinary human beings all over the planet. I can't ask for anything more humbling and more wonderful than that. So, but that's how I got into radio. I thought it was really a unique story.
I think that's fabulous. And what I really appreciate about it is that, you know, the day you met him, you had no idea that he was going to kind of shoot you off in this other trajectory in the future.
Nope.
To this possibility that maybe you'd considered or thought about, maybe even not. But it goes to show that every day when we go out in the world, when we meet a stranger or we make a new friend, we have no idea how that person is going to inspire us, affect us in a different way, lead us down a path that we hadn't considered. And for me, that makes it exciting to get up in the morning because you have no idea what kind of experience you're going to have that completely changes your life.
And in fact, I was a district sales manager for a food company. I had a wife, 2 kids, a house, a dog, a cat, and all of that. And I still wanted to go do this. It ended up causing what I like to call my bad country music song time. But when, you know, my dad died, my dog died, my wife left, I lost my house, all that stuff. But we need to take our final break. We're talking to Kirsten Rudberg, and we're going to have a great conversation because you say words that I don't know what they mean, and we got to figure that out. So we'll be right back.
A lifetime of savings can disappear overnight. Millions of dollars are stolen every day from unsuspecting older adults by family members, caregivers, and trusted professionals. If you suspect financial exploitation, call the Elder Care Locator at 1-800-677-1116 or go online to the National Adult Protective Services Association to be connected with help in your area.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. And Kirsten, I got to tell you, you know, the point of sale, not point of sale, the public service announcements that I run on the show, I'm really invested in them because they really say something positive about us and our planet and what we should be doing and stuff like that. But I forgot what I was going to ask you. But so do you remember?
Of course not.
I tell you, well, see, that's one of the things we script the show so carefully, and we make sure that we spend hours pre-doing the show and talking about every little detail of how we're going to. No, we don't. This is all driven by what I like to say is my intuition, my guide, your intuition, your guides. It's like a nice, happy, slow dance of what we're talking about. And it really is. It's great fun talking to someone like you. You're so learned. Oh, I don't remember what it was. You say words that I don't know what they mean. You said words that started, I think, with an N in a little while ago, and I missed talking to you about it. And
gosh, well, you know, I don't know what word that is. I was going to say the one that I always get called on is panentheist. And of course, I already described this at the beginning of the
If you describe that again for those that are just tuning in. What exactly the
an entheist.
Thank you.
So it's basically it's what I live by, that everything's conscious, that everything in this world is sacred, that I need to have respect, and everything has legitimacy. As humans aren't better than dogs, or elephants aren't better than trees aren't better than a sea turtle, that everything is legitimate, that it's all sacred, and that we need to have proper respect and acceptance that humans aren't the center of the universe, that we are part and parcel of a whole, and that our greatest job is to find peace with how do we steward, how do we be part of this environment, part of the earth, without, killing animals or destroying environment. How do we live respectfully within the environments that we inhabit?
That's kind of also now. Have you studied Native American philosophy from the United States and the Plains Indians and what they believed in and stuff? That was a lot more earth-based than what we think of today, wasn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And it's also a lot of I'm white, okay, so I really shouldn't be speaking about this because I'm not Indigenous. But a lot of it, in my mind, or my interpretation or understanding, is it's all about right path, right? So you could say the right path of your life, like how you live your life, your destiny, where you're going to. But you can also do right path around how do you put insecticide on those weeds? Or I'm not weeds, but the bugs that are eating your tomatoes. Do you put weed killer? What is the right path with how we affect our environment and how we live our lives? Are we kind to everybody? Do we have patience? And look, I fail at all of this all the time. Not the insecticide or the weed killer. I don't do that. But I do fail endlessly with other human beings. I am not Mother Teresa. I am, as I said before, grumpy and a complainer and a whiner par excellence. But it is important in my daily life to kind of use these sentiments as a touchstone. How do I want to go out in the world today? How do I want to orient myself? How do I want to leave other humans or other living things when I have an interaction with them? Knowing with ultimate humility that I'm not special, by the way. I'm just one tiny, tiny, tiny piece in this greater whole that we call the earth and then the universe. But how can I gently walk on the earth, without injuring or hurting or affecting negatively too many other beings?
That's the one. I agree with you completely, except for one itty bitty, teeny weeny, spidery thing.
Oh, a spider.
And it's spiders and me. So I have a pact with them,
Okay.
and the pact with them is, okay, look, you don't want to die, and I don't want to kill you, so don't come in my house.
Fair pact.
And I very rarely get any spiders in my house.
Amazing. Well, because you've had that conversation with them, right?
Yeah. And they know, and I got spiders outside everywhere, and it's like they know. Oh, there's a sign up, I think, in Spiderese that says "Don't go in there." It's a bad place. So
smart. That is an awfully hard language to learn. So good for you.
By the way, we've run out of time. Will you come back and see me again?
Absolutely, yes.
Kirsten Rudberg has been our guest. Go to her podcast, which is bitesizedblessings.com. We've got just a few seconds, so tell us anything you'd like us to know.
Oh, I'd love for people to listen to my podcast. I'm an author too. My third book just came out. I'm rewriting the Peter Rabbit series. I'm a screenwriter. I love meeting new people. I'm always looking for guests on the show. So go to my website, email me. I'm up for meeting lots of new people. I love more friends. The more, the merrier.
Next time we have to talk about your book and the screenwriting and all that kind of stuff, because there's just so much. You are so talented.
Thank you. That's really, I feel like, at the beginning of the show, you said we're going to have a great show. I said to be determined. I feel like it's happened. It's totally happened.
No question about it. And by the way, I knew it. I had no doubt in my mind. So, because you are extraordinary. And
Thank
thank you again. Go to her website, which is bitesizedblessings.com, and find out all about her and listen to her podcast. It's really good. And I want to thank you again, my dear. And if you'll wait right there, I'll be right back. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin